Okay, well, it looks like everyone is in their appropriate breakout rooms. So, thank you again for joining us this morning. My name is Gretchen Flores, and I work as part of the planning team that has been um, putting together, helping to put together these plans. And for today's format, I have a brief presentation on the purpose of the plans, where we've been, and where we are at this point in the process. And then I can jump to straight into the plan itself and take questions. This is really an opportunity for everyone to be able to ask questions um, and get any specific answers that they have been searching for that you have not yet found. So I am going to share my screen. And so we have a small enough group where if you do have a question along the way, please feel free to just come off of mute and just ask it. I can't really see the participants when I'm in share mode, so just feel free to just unmute your microphone if you have a question. I am going to share. So you should see my full presentation. So think
Growth is coming.
yes. Have you can you see it now? You should see a screen that says growth is coming. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
So you have joined the North, Middle, and Outer Geography. This is an overview of where we are in the plans, and then, like I mentioned before, I'll jump into the specifics of the plans after this brief overview. So the reason why we are undertaking this planning process is because growth is coming, and it has been coming for the last about decade or so, and it's going to continue to come into our area. In response to that projected growth, the city adopted the Charlotte's Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan in 2021, which really defines our 20-year vision for growth and development in the city. So that plan essentially calls for future growth to benefit as many people as possible, and that growth happens in an equitable way. So while the comprehensive plan provides a broad vision for the community, that's a citywide plan, there are other levels of guidance that's needed to make our vision come to life. So this is the planning framework that has been developed and adopted with the comprehensive plan. It identifies the subsequent levels of planning that are needed. So the very first level is, as I mentioned before, the comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2021. And as a companion planning effort was the policy map, which is really the land use component of the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan gives you policies, and then the policy map really gives you where the land uses should be. Level two are strategic plans, which are citywide documents that provide more details than the comprehensive plan on a particular topic. So, for example, if you're familiar with the strategic mobility plan, that was adopted in 2022, and that provides more guidance on how equitable and safe mobility choices should happen throughout the city. Level three is where we are now, which are the community area plans. And this provides more guidance for appropriate land uses, building forms, and infrastructure, and what that need is throughout the plan geography. And then level four are specific plans which focus on smaller geographies and provide more guidance for implementation of specific projects. So, what those look like are transit station plans or corridor plans. And it's important to note that for levels 2 through 4, those are all building upon the vision of the comprehensive plan. So the goal for community area plans is really to create complete communities. And what that means is that um, we aim to create places where people can live, work, and play and where that's done in a way that is not harmful to the environment. So where we've been in the process is this community area planning process started in 2023 and went all the way to now, which we are in the review and adoption phase. So in phase one, we really started with identifying what are the community's priorities. In phases two and three, we looked at place type and recommended projects and programs. In phase four, we then started to develop the plans and implementation strategy for how to actually address the community's priorities. And now in phase five, we're going through the review and adoption phase, which include this level of public engagement, as well as then taking it before council for final adoption. So in terms of how the plans were developed, they were developed using a systematic process, meaning that they were developed in the same way, and that all 14 plans will have the same components and format within them. Now, that being said, even though there are common factors or components to the plans, each plan does have unique content that reflects the individual character of that geography. And it has some common policy and guidance that helps achieve our vision. The plans will help provide a common set of considerations for decision makers to ensure that we're constantly evaluating the options in line with the city's vision. So over time, these considerations will help ensure growth is accommodated in a way that is respectful to established neighborhoods, aligns growth with our planned and existing infrastructure capacity, and that it creates a vibrant mixed-use community in the centers for everyone to be able to access. So I'll go through briefly what what each plan has in terms of its content. So each plan has an introduction section and a community area profile section, and that really is the specific demographics to that plan geography. Then each plan has a community needs and goals, and that is again unique content to that specific area in terms of where are the gaps and what are the existing needs for that geography, as well as the priority goals from the comprehensive plan. The next two sections are creating complete communities and then supporting the vision. And I'll go into supporting the vision in the next slide. But creating complete communities and supporting the vision really provide the meat of the plan, and that this is where you find the specific policies and as well as assessments for the area that help inform then how projects should be, what projects and how projects should be delivered. And then the last two sections, the implementation section and the appendix section, the implementation piece really tells us how we should be implementing the plan. And then the appendix has some additional resources for both residents and the council and appointed bodies to be able to use. So the supporting the vision section, I wanted to dive a little bit into this because there's a very useful tool for residents in here, and that's the neighborhood toolkit. And what that is basically a catalog of all of the programs that exist within the city that are currently available to residents their to help address their needs. The intent with this resource is that it empowers neighborhoods to take action. So, for example, if there's a neighborhood or an area that wants to create a neighborhood park or amenitize a common open space in their neighborhood, this toolkit does have resources that are available throughout the city to help create that vision or deliver that project.
Hmm.
In it, you will find resources with regards to access to housing, access to goods and services, open space and environmental justice. There's a mobility and accessibility section, There's a section regarding community character. And then the last section is the neighborhood leadership and capacity building. And that's really, again, a resources to help neighborhoods be able to build capacity and empower themselves. So the plans are implemented in a number of ways. Several of the ways that these plans can be implemented is through future development, through public-private partnerships, through capital improvements, and that's typically city-driven, through rezonings, which are private rezonings, or alignment rezoning, which would be headed by the city. It's important to note that even though these plans are being developed now, additional planning would need to occur in the future as needed. So, while these plans don't provide all of the answers, some additional planning, like specific plans, may be needed in the future to address very specific neighborhood um, issues or items. And as with any adopted plan, it is a living document and would need to be updated periodically. So next steps are we are having workshops today. We had one yesterday evening. And then July 18th, which is at the end of this week, the comment period closes. July 25th, we have committed to publishing the comments that are received as well as staff responses, and that will be posted on our website. And I can provide links to our website shortly. And then August 4th, there is a Transportation Planning and Development Committee presentation, which can be accessed through our YouTube page. And that's a City Council committee where information will be shared with them as well. And then lastly would be council decision, which is right now it's to be determined. We don't have a projected date for that. So in terms of resources that are available, we have our open house information on our website. And what that is basically all of the information that I've shared in this presentation is also online. It has the links to the plans. The draft plans, again, are on our website. You can read the plans and share feedback right on the plans themselves. We continue to have office hours available for the public to be able to access staff one-on-one. Those office hours are happening virtually, Tuesdays 11 to 1 p.m. and then Thursdays 3 to 5 p.m. And you can sign up on our website. We also have hard copies of the plans available at our libraries, and that's every library throughout the city has a hard copies of all of the plans. Public hearing, we had one in May, on May 12th. And then subsequent to that, we had a series of virtual webinars. The first one was May 15th. The next one after that was yesterday, and then today is the final one for this week. And with that, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions that I can answer, or we can just jump right into the plan itself if that's helpful for everyone. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see everyone. And then I'm happy to take questions, and you can feel free to just unmute yourself. Jack, if you're speaking, I can't hear you.
Just getting my video
Oh,
hooked up as well so you can see
yes.
who you're to. I know it's a little more pleasurable that way.
Thank you.
Regarding the additional rezoning that's going to be required to implement the plan, I would like to strongly suggest that you folks reconsider protest petitions. I know we used them quite effectively, I think several years ago prior to the representatives doing away with the representative from Huntersville doing away with them at the state general assembly. But we found those to be quite useful in giving voice to the neighborhoods, and like to strongly encourage you to at least consider some method along those lines of reactivating that, perhaps some method of requiring a higher threshold a higher threshold of city council approval for passage of rezonings along that way. That would be a statement. A question I have is we're having a lot of problems on the equipment drive area where we've been having that for years and they're still going on with the hotels that are along that area between Mallard Creek or between Graham and Sugar Creek. And we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of wondering if there's any method in the plan for addressing areas such as that that are high crime. Another example of that would be some of the issues that we're starting to experience at North Lake Mall. I know that the mall has been quite responsive with changing hours for unaccompanied minors and so forth, but kind of wondering if there's any methodology being considered
Mm-hmm.
for implementing additional safety and security concerns.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
thank you for both of those comments. So with your first comment, we will pass along that comment to the team that's responsible for the process regarding rezonings. It would be a completely separate process from this, so you're right in that respect. But all of the comments that are made today and throughout this planning process that would require some separate future action are being forwarded to the team that would handle that at a future date. With regard to the sort of methodology or the plans that we have to address crimes, so these plans in particular don't delve quite in depth into that, but police and fire have been our partners throughout this process. So again, any um, any comments regarding issues that would affect them and growth, we are conscientious that growth would be that they would be having to plan for growth happening in the city in their specific districts. We have been sharing with them the growth projections as well as where certain land uses would be envisioned through the policy map so that that helps them plan accordingly then for any future needs in terms of service increases or adjustments that they would need to have. So while the plans themselves don't necessarily dive into like the operations for um, how to handle or how police and fire would be handling that. We do share with them our growth projections as well as the plans for where growth is happening, and then that helps them plan accordingly in terms of where the anticipated growth and service needs would be.
I know that they've been taking into consideration growth estimates with some of the subdivision
Mm-hmm.
realignment that have gone on. And I know that, I'm going to love to compliment them and you in that area because we have definitely seen a drop in response time
Sure.
based on some of the newer, the realignment to some of the subdivisions out in our area. So look
Yeah.
forward to that as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We really do give kudos to our fire and police departments. They're top in the country in terms of response times. So we play our role in making sure that we're sharing with them how the city is intended to grow so that they can continue to provide that level of service.
The last question I have or comment I have, and I'll take after your transportation presentation, is the current status of the light rail coming, the northern line. I can never remember the color. I guess it's
It's
the
the red
blue line,
line.
rid line. Okay,
Oh,
the red
well, the
line,
northern line is the red line. The one that's going out into the university area is the blue line.
the north line,
Yeah,
the one that's going through Derrida and up along 77. I
sure.
know that based on the last meeting that we had, there was some consideration for changing, I guess would be the right word, some of the stops,
Mm-hmm.
doing one or two and adding one, trying to trying to maintain the transit time while still, addressing the service needs of the population growth centers. So kind of, I might have a question after you do that part of the presentation.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure. Um, let's see. Are there any other questions before I go into the actual plan itself?
Is there is there any is there anything that you can add or tell us regarding um, Parks and Rec, the greenways up in this area? Because
Sure.
I well, for I live in an area that I live right on the greenway,
Mm-hmm.
and we have specifically, we have seen a lot of craziness with cutting trees down and trimming and all this stuff. It's been a little bit of a hack job. And I know that probably a lot of the people that work in Parks and Rec have maybe not, are still not there, working that area. But um, I have to say, and I'm not a tree hugger, by the way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's not who I am, but
Sure.
I live near it and I walk on it every day with my dog and ride bikes. And it's a little bit, I don't know how you pick the people who do tree work or if it's all just Duke Energy or what's going on with that. That's a question I have. Plus, we also have we have had a major bridge down that has been 2 years in the making of trying to get it back up. We have about 17 miles of stretch, and now it's cut sort of in a third because of a bridge being out. So I just didn't know if you had any information on any of those things.
Yeah, so with regard to the bridge, that may be something that I would need to just look into what's happening with that project. It's not something that I have available today, but I can certainly jot down your name and I have your email through the registration, so I can
Well, I don't know if you do, because I tried to register a while back and I never got received anything for today's presentation. So I actually called the local chapter of
Okay,
who's heading this up, and they gave me a link today.
got it.
They said that you guys are the national section, so I'm not sure if I ever did successfully register, but I can give you my information.
Yes, if you can so in the chat section, if you can
Mhm.
drop your email in the chat and you can send it directly to me. And that way I can have it. So where it says to in the chat, you can just click my name and then just send it directly to me and I
That's
will
fine.
follow up with you. Um, what's the
Okay.
location of that bridge?
It is in Winchester is the neighborhood. It's near the pool
Oh, okay.
in
Okay.
Winchester. It's been out since there was a storm years ago, and I think it's been like it's a year and a half or so, and it's been out the whole time. So it's changed our greenway,
Okay.
substantially.
All
I
right.
think there was a notice about it, but it's not clear. And again, I I feel like I used to have a family member that was an arborist, and
Mm,
that's one of the reasons why I noticed how they I feel like they took out. I have a neighbor that they took out all of her lelands. I mean, they don't, I get that there are easements. I'm a realtor.
mm-hmm.
But I feel like they did a major hack job, and it's
Okay.
Asplund, and I don't know who hired them, but I think they need to be reconsidered, or somebody should reconsider them for the next time they cut.
Okay. So a couple things. With regard to the greenways, so those are typically managed by the county.
Mm,
And so they would be responsible for the maintenance of those greenways, unless it's like on like cutting through private HOA, and then it would be the HOA's responsibility. However, um, Park and Rec is a partner in this planning effort as well. And so one of the assessments that is included in the plan is also for open space. And what that assessment looks like or looks at is tree canopy. And so that could be something that we can forward to our Park and Rec partners to make sure that they are aware of the I don't want to say clear cutting, but the cutting, the maybe the excess cutting of trees or tree canopy. It is something that we partner with, we the city partner with the county on, and we're cognizant of tree canopy and that preservation. So that's your comment is very relevant to that conversation, and I'd be happy to pass that along as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not saying that they can't, trim them because of the wires.
Sure,
We have electrical wires down there. And I get that. Trimming's one thing, but they just literally like would take down a whole tree in one area and then next to it they would just hack a tree up so much that there's nothing left. That
sure.
it was just the care in which they didn't take
Okay,
to do it. And it's not that hard. I mean, you trim things. I know that they have to trim a certain amount of trees. Maybe just take the whole tree down, but then the tree would just be sitting there half cut and dying.
right, right.
Didn't it was absolutely not done with the care that I think the greenways are beautiful and they're
Mm-hmm.
wonderful for this whole city. 36 years I've lived here and I've lived all over Charlotte, including South Charlotte. This is one of the nicest areas for a greenway we
Mm-hmm.
have. And but it's a beauty, but it needs to be preserved somewhat. I think just using any old person, to do it is not very responsible.
Understood. I appreciate that, Paul.
Sure. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, any other general questions before I jump into the plan itself? Okay, I'm going to share my screen again because it's easier to just talk from the plan. So let me just scroll up so that you can see where I am. Oh, share first. Okay, you should be able to see a map and a heading that says mobility.
Seeing it now.
Okay, great. So this is I am in the our web page that has the links to the plans. We are in the North Middle and Outer Geography. If you scroll through here, you'll see the table of content and then sort of all of the other introductory um, information that I had shared previously. So the piece that I want to move to is the mobility piece because I know that there's a lot of information. Before I move into the mobility piece, I did want to point out that when we talk about land use, this is the land use map or the policy map that has the place types, which basically are your land use designations for this area. And I'll walk you through what the colors mean so that you can get an understanding of where the uses are. So the light yellow is your neighborhood one, and that's typically your single family detached residential. It can include things like duplexes and triplexes, but it's mostly single family residential and usually established areas. Your orange, which is this color here, is typically the neighborhood two, which are usually apartments or larger scale residential development. It's usually a little bit more intense than single family. The greens are your park and preserve, and that's typically land owned by either the city or the county park and rec. The red, which you have sprinkled along the thoroughfares, that is your single use commercial. So think of your gas stations are typically found in this area. You'll see the campus designation, which is the teal, and that's typically your institutional uses. So think universities, schools, some churches can fall into campus as well as um, office parks. The purple is your manufacturing and logistics, and that's typically your industrial uses. Then you have your uh, light and dark blue, and then the pink, which are usually your mixed use centers. And that's typically where you find a lot of the mixture of uses, so both residential and non-residential mixed together. And that's really where we try to drive a lot of the growth so that that can help us do a couple things. That can help us preserve the single family residential areas, as well as accommodate for growth in a in a way that allows people to live, work, and play within proximity of all of those different uses. Um, I want to move now to the mobility piece and walk you through how that shows up in the plan. And I'm sorry if I'm scrolling and it's making you dizzy, but I just need to get there. So in the mobility section, what this has is a number of things. The first one is it has just some resources about the different departments in the city that um, touch mobility in one way or another. And what mobility really talks about is not just the way we get around in a car, but it also talks about, um, pedestrian amenities, bike access, the greenways, which can be used as a form of moving around, as well as some transit options. So this mobility section really looks at some of the gaps that exist, and it then has a list of some projects within our centers that we can then use collectively, whether that's through private development um, or through public investments, to then start filling in some of these gaps that exist. So this really is a map that looks at some of the projects within the centers that are either proposed or that are underway in one way or another. So we'll look at the assessment, and I'll walk you through how this assessment is set up. This looks at the needs or the gaps of these centers, and typically these are either neighborhood centers or community activity centers. And then it looks at the pedestrian network. So are there sidewalks? Are there ways for people to get around on foot? What's the bike network look like? So is it bike accessible crossings? So that's typically your crossings are at either intersections or mid-block crossings. What's the length of the blocks and then the street network? Typically, what we find is that blocks that are longer in length or streets that are not connected are not conducive to really getting around in anything other than a car. Is there parking available? Are there internal connections to these centers? So how well are the centers themselves connected? And then is there transit access? And then in terms of the legend, what we want is to get to aligned with aspirations. We want the circle to be fully filled in and then checked off. That would signal that all of these areas, all of these sort of aspirational characters are complete and that they're conducive to having mobility options. At the far end of that spectrum is a circle that is not filled in or checked off, and that means that it's not aligned with our aspirations or the community's aspirations, and that there's opportunity to have projects that are, for example, these projects that are listed, opportunities for those projects to be to fill the gap essentially. So as you can see, and Jack, this is probably getting back to your earlier point, or maybe the question that you had is where does this area stand in terms of mobility, access, and assessment? So as you can see, a lot of the circles are not checked off, which means that there's a lot of opportunity for gaps to be filled with regard to mobility in this section of the city. There's sort of two parts to this assessment. So this is the other piece to it. It's just a continuation of the projects in the area. We just couldn't fit it into one page. And then the last piece that I wanted to touch on that you may or may not be already aware of is the city has within the last couple years identified strategic investment areas, and what that is a bundle of projects within each geography. This one has three. These bundles of projects are a series of smaller projects that can be either grouped with either existing projects or projects that are funded or can be funded on their own. And this is really to, again, couple with the assessment that I just pointed to and trying to fill a lot of these gaps. So Jack, I think you mentioned that some of these aspirations you may not see in your lifetime, and that we are cognizant of that. There's a lot of improvements that are needed, but this at least gives us the framework to put the projects into a plan so that as future investment happens, we can then point to the plan and say, this is in a plan, this is a gap that exists, and we should assign dollars to some of these areas and projects and try to group them together to make some headway. So the three strategic investment areas are that touch this plan are North Lake, West Sugar Creek, and then University City. And again, these are bundles of projects that are scalable and intended to be coupled with other improvements to try to make some headway in the improvements that are needed overall in this area. I'm going to stop there because I just shared a lot of information and then open it up for questions to see what questions or comments you might have.
Hello, this is Pat. I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a time in the M1 area? Is there a timetable for when the micro transit will be implemented?
So I know that there are the short answer is that there isn't a timetable in these plans, but we have partnered with CATS, who are one of our partners in the micro transit and micro mobility space. They have, I know that they have started implementing some microtransit options, and I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but I want to say that they've started in the sort of northern part of the city, and they have plans to expand that citywide. I believe that they're doing some pilot projects in the northern part of the city just to make sure that they've got the logistics and the components that they have in place to then be able to roll it out citywide. So while it's not necessarily captured in this plan, it is something that's being done through separate planning processes through CATS, but that we know of those efforts because CATS is a partner in this planning effort. And I can probably provide some links to that, Pat. Um, if you just give me 1 second, I can link that to I can link
Is
that in
that
the
is
chat.
that like the one, I'm sorry, is that like the one that they did in Huntersville?
Yeah, so that's part of what they've been rolling out. Give me 1 second. Let me point you to um, the Charlotte Area Transit website because that's where you'll be able to find all of this information. So I'm gonna drop that in the chat. And I'll share with everyone so that everyone has access to it.
So can I look for this in my lifetime or?
So some of it, yes. Some of the microtransit, yes. Some of the projects on here could happen, especially so there is a referendum that where the city is looking to put on the ballot in November. If that passes, that really does provide a good funding source for a lot of these projects to be able to at least start. I'll be honest with you, the full spectrum of all of these projects, I don't know that would happen in our lifetime. But it does set the future up for the generations that come after us, and it does set the foundation in a way that may not have existed before.
Okay,
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that.
thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Anything that I can help answer?
One comment I'd like to add is consider some consideration for KPIs and
Hmm.
specifically cost per rider, as
Sure.
an example, for a lot of the mobility project, cost per rider
Yeah.
uh, numbers, and to make those a little bit more. I've always suspected that CATS management has those
They
in a
do.
drawer somewhere, but they're not made public. very often, and I think that would be something that would be good, especially when you're having a public meeting, that the audience can take that into consideration when they're looking at supporting or opposing different proposals.
Okay. Thank you for that. And you're right that CATS does have metrics and evaluation methods. So we can pass that along to CATS that it would be useful to make that public.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? If you don't have any questions at this point, our comment period is open until the end of the week, and you can access the plans on our website. I will drop a couple of links now. I'm going to drop the actual link to the plan itself in the chat, as well as our website and way to comment.
Noticing that this has been recorded, are you also going to make that link? Are you going to publish that link to the
Yes.
email list? Thank you. Appreciate
Yes,
that.
yes, everything will be made available, and we typically send out a follow-up email when the comments, when the recording is ready, and then when the comments are ready to be viewed. So if you remember, I mentioned that the next steps is for the comment period to close at the end of this week, and then that we would make comments and responses available July 25th. So you should be receiving a follow-up contact for with those responses, basically. So
This is Pat again. I have another question
yes.
regarding the recordings. Would we be able to get access to the other areas? Because I only attended this session, but I would
Yes.
like to see the information from the other areas.
Yes, so that's all available. The link that you get will have everything available.
Okay,
It
great.
it all lives on the website.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes. Anything else that I can help address or point you to? Paula, let me just make sure that okay, I see your email, Paula. So I will follow up with you on that. I may need to just do some digging before I can get you some um, accurate information.
This is Pat again. I have another question.
Sure.
So is this map updated periodically? So if I have this link and I go back in a month later or so, it will have updated information?
Yes. So if you're looking at our policy map, that policy map that's in there is the adopted policy map. If there is anything that changes, so for example, if there's a rezoning that changes that map, that link automatically gets updated.
Okay.
Yeah. Good
Thank
question.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that.
And along those lines, I've been playing this game for probably about 25 years. And my highest compliment to your, shall we say, recent adoption of technology, both
Okay.
from the website, and I'm an IT professional by
Sure.
trade, as well as the Zoom technology that I can participate in these conference calls, sitting here in my home office, or
Yeah.
so my highest compliments on incorporating that.
Thank you. We'll pass it along to the team as well. We really got a crash course during COVID, and it's worked. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. So
I'm not sure that some of the butts that were kicked aren't still a little sore. But yeah, that was definitely a wake up call.
yeah, for sure, for sure. We're happy that it exists too. I feel like it helps us reach a broader audience as well.
So, thank you for your presentation. I'm going to
Yes,
drop.
thank you. Well, if there are no other questions, we can feel free to end a little early. I want to thank you again for your participation and for being here at lunchtime. So thank you.